The final score is 13-16. The Parramatta Eels beat the West Tigers in an away game at CommBank. And oh my god, that was an absolute shambles. Error after error after error. That was a ridiculous game. Probably one of the worst games I think I've ever watched. Not just as a Parramatta fan, just as a Parramatta game. Just of any NRL game I've ever watched. That was so bad and so annoying to watch. There's so much to talk about. I'm excited and I make these kind of review videos every time Parramatta basically play. I'll give my thoughts on everything that happened, and there's a lot to talk about because there were a lot of errors and a lot of really bad moments that I definitely need to talk about. But with that said, hope you enjoy the new camera. It's a new phone, so camera looks much better, I would say. And with that said, let's just get straight into this. So it came down pretty late, but Parramatta actually had that lead early on. At halftime, it was 12-0. And honestly, if we were a half decent side, we would have been 30-0 up already. As much as we made so many mistakes, the Tigers also made a lot of mistakes as well. We obviously made the most. We'll look at the stats in a second. But there were some problems, and we showed our problems that we have, but they were like 10 times worse than they normally are. And then the Tigers were just a little bit worse than what they normally are. So both teams were definitely not on their A game, and it was some pretty rubbish performances from both sides. It was the first try from us. It was Samrani who finally broke the deadlock. He jumped up in the air, caught it, kind of released it, and lucky it didn't hook Buller. He was able to re-get it and put it to ground, so it wasn't a knock-on. It was a good try to get the air, and that was kind of something we did throughout the game, kick the Samrani. It only worked that one time though. And then our second try came around 10 minutes later for the Silver, but only around a few minutes before we actually had a try disallowed. Moses went for the kick, and it looks like he kicked it and then deflected off Luai. It came in and we scored the try off because of that deflection. But instead it was actually, when he dropped the kick of the ball, it actually hit Luai's foot before Moses actually kicked it, meaning it will count as a knock-on, disallowing that. But then, obviously, a few minutes later, as I just mentioned before, Tillin De Silva came in and he was able to get a try. A little nice bit of play there to kind of get around those guys. And thank goodness, because it was past De Silva and then Paolo was on the right. Thank goodness he didn't pass to Paolo, because you guys, most of you know my thoughts on Paolo. He's an absolute legend, absolutely love the lad, but he's just not, he's one of these guys like Adokar who are just not at their top quality anymore. And before we talk about the second half, there's a lot to talk about Josh Adokar today because he's had a pretty rubbish game. Like at the start, he looked pretty good. You know, he was easily using his pace and breaking through. You could tell he wanted a try. But yeah, we could have scored even earlier than the Samrani try, which I forgot to mention. If he just ran through and they ended up getting tackled, if he just one simple pass to Samrani and we would have been clean through and scored much early on. Look, he was able to run and try and get through, which looked better than usual, but his passing game was just not it today. So it was alright. You know, 12-0 up at half time is not that bad. Let's keep up the momentum and we should win this game actually pretty easily. Then it happened. Funopal, with his first try in 36 games, I think. He hasn't scored, honestly, in years, and he just came in and from around the 20 to 15 meter mark and just tumbled through 6 different Parramatta defenders and scored pretty easily. That was an embarrassing try to concede. Obviously Dewey kicked it, and then only 10 minutes later Dewey got his own try himself, making it 12-12, obviously after kicking that conversion. He was also just kind of from the similar scenario, just being able to get the ball from actually a bit further out than most people normally score tries from, and just kept running and was able to get there, which was pretty annoying. Especially with knowing that just before that, Dewey had the ball, he knocked it on, it was picked up by Volkman ran, and then he passed a simple pass, an easy pass to Josh Adokar, and when Josh Adokar tried to catch it, he completely dropped it. Adokar had a horrible game. A lot of people had some really bad games, and a lot of errors, especially dropping the ball, but Adokar, man, that was not a good performance from him today. And then obviously, as I mentioned, Dewey went up and he was able to get that try, which equaled the game up, which is, look, annoying. We should have had a bigger lead in the first half, and the second half looked absolutely rubbish for us. Then around 10 or so minutes later, Adam Dewey on the fifth tackle, he had the opportunity, he kicked the field goal, and that was a lot of pressure for Parramatta. Look, we already had the lead early on, but like Penrith, we were about to blow another half-time lead. Look, we went 13-12 down the first time we went down to the Tigers during that game. And there were definitely some nerves. Less than 10 minutes remaining, and it didn't look like we were able to score a try. We had a horrible second half until Iongi got that try. So this is actually really smart from Moses, I think. And he's had a horrible game as well. I'll quickly mention Moses. He had multiple times where he did the drop kicks and dropouts and that, and he went short, but he could just never kick it 10 metres. If that was any other player who walked into Parramatta and did that on the weekly, he would have been kicked out of the club and absolutely shamed for it. The problem is, it's Mitchell Moses, and because he's named Mitchell Moses, and because what he's done in the past, he doesn't get any hate for it. And look, I don't say hate's a good thing, but like there needs to be some sort of criticism for someone who keeps doing that, and it's obviously not working at all. But look, he was able to get that try assist to Iongi because this is the one smart thing he did. While I would think Jason Rowles would rather Eels kick to make it 13-13, I think that Moses kind of finally had a sense and realised, wait a minute, we are 15th versus 16th. We're some of the worst two teams in the league. This is going to mean nothing. No one wants to see this go for golden point. So he went to go for the try, and it actually worked. We finally were able to get a try right on the corner. It was Iongi in the 75th minute, which ended up making it 16-13 after Moses just missed out on that kick. And there was a little bit of pressure at the end, but finally Parramatta were able to come home pretty comfortably in the last 5 minutes. I'm not saying the game was comfortable. I mean, after scoring that last try, it was pretty comfortable from there. But it's an embarrassing performance, let's be honest. And I've mentioned multiple different players in there, and I don't want to pick out, but I also want to do, like, there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of really big mistakes that happens in this game. Look, if I look at the possession, it was actually Tigers who had more possession, 55-45, because they had a lot of the possession in that second half. Completion rate, 67%, 25 out of 37. That is embarrassing for Parramatta. For the Tigers, it was 33 out of 43. So there weren't very good completion rates, to be completely honest. I want to look at the main one though, which is the missed tackles and the errors and stuff like that. So let me keep on scrolling down the NRL list. Tackles missed. So 50 tackles missed. Missed tackles 50 for Parramatta and 28 for the Tigers. They missed 50 tackles, Parramatta. Errors, 19 errors from Parramatta. That is atrocious. The Tigers had 15 errors as well. That is also horrible, but 19 errors from Parramatta. That is just so disappointing. Conceded 6 penalties. Tigers only conceded 5. Not only, conceding 5 is still a big number. And 2 on reports for Eels and 1 for the Tigers. And Parramatta used 8 interchanges and Tigers used 7. I know, I just like reading the last stat for everything. Overall, that was an atrocious performance from both teams. That was honestly horrible to watch. Not just as a fan of one of the teams, but just like, if you're just a mutual fan, just trying to watch some rugby league, this is your first game watching rugby league and you see this. That was an atrocious performance for both these teams and just horrible for the game of rugby league. And also referee calls, I don't really like some of them. Look, besides the point, even though technically one nearly saved us, because in the point we kind of pushed the ball back, like tried to offload it, and it was on the floor and the guy picked it up and scored, but got disallowed because he actually stripped Volkman. So there's a lot coming back to me as I'm complaining and more. But look, that was a horrible performance and not very good for the game of rugby league. But look, doesn't matter. We are now confirmed ahead of the West Tigers. When I mean confirmed, I mean like, because before the game it was kind of like, oh, are we actually ahead? But now we definitely are ahead. We're also actually ahead of the Titans and the Broncos, so have some of that. We're tied on points at the Storm, and we are in 13th place, which is not perfect, but you know what? It's better than nothing. But seeing Broncos, Tigers, and Dragons down at the bottom, and at the start of the season, I definitely didn't think that. Anyway, with that said, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoyed the new camera. Hopefully it looks much better, makes the video more enjoyable to watch. With that said, No hate to any of these guys. Well, kind of it. I'm trying to do more criticism because there's obviously a lot of problems there and they need to be fixed. These guys can't catch a ball, and that is a big problem for a rugby league team who want to try and compete for finals in the next few years. It's not looking very good at the moment, but look, we've had some interesting games this round. We saw the Roosters scored 82 points, so we didn't concede by 82. Come on, Parramatta.